Good morning, Dan and Amy and President Trump. I know focus of yesterday was, of course, on the cancellation of the summit with Kim Jong-un, Rocket Man, with the possibility that...
with the tiny hands, right?
Yeah, with the possibility that they could still convene at a later date. But this other news, the world of sports, but also justice, Trump issued a full pardon posthumously to boxing great Jack Johnson, who's the first black heavyweight champion in the world, the first part of the 20th century. He was arguably, and I think persuasively, wrongly prosecuted under a racist law back in 1913, the Mann Act, for taking his white girlfriend across state lines for quote-unquote immoral purposes. Had to spend a year.
That was a bit of a stretch, but he spent a year in jail, and that ruined his career.
Yeah, that's right.
I watched some of his, like black and white film yesterday. They were showing of his boxing matches. Yeah. He was good.
1910 fight of the century.
Wow.
So that's not bad for racist Hitler to.
Well, President Trump was confronted by Sylvester Stallone and asked, he told him about his story. And then President Trump tweeted about it a few months ago, and it actually came to fruition yesterday. They had Lennox Lewis was there.
Yes.
A bunch of greats were there.
I mean, I know you want to give Rocky Balboa credit, but I mean, still, ultimately, it was his pen.
No, I know.
And so, hey.
Why didn't Obama do it? First African-American president, he should have pardoned Mr. Johnson.
A stroke for racial justice, however late, by racist Hitler. I mean, it's just worth noting, I suppose. In other sports news, have you seen the new Northwestern facility?
For just the athletes or for the students or for everybody?
Well, it's really athletic facility, but there's some...
Well, I know they're working on a new basketball arena.
This is the Ryan Fieldhouse and Walter Athletic Center.
Oh.
It's right on...
I bet it's gorgeous.
It's right on Lake Michigan. I can't... $270 million.
Wow.
$270 million. The facility...
Can you go in?
It was described by one Yahoo sports writer as like the Jetsons dropped on the shores of Lake Michigan. 45-foot floor-to-ceiling windows.
Ooh.
That run the expanse of the entire practice field overlooking the lake. One recruit's father called it the infinity pool of indoors because you've got like this panoramic view.
Oh, I'm sure I'm sure it is an infinity pool.
Just by comparison, Clemson, which wins national championships, they have a huge training facility as well with a slide, mini golf course, bowling lanes. That cost $200 million less than Northwestern's. Oregon, which is considered the gold standard, cost $86 million.
And ours cost $270?
$250 million. And it's still $65,000 to go there.
Well, that's why.
Let me just say this one more time, and I have the standing as an alumnus.
Yes.
Do not send your kids to Northwestern or your athletes.
Wow, that's mean. Go to the University of Iowa.
No.
The Harvard of the Midwest.
No, I didn't say don't get an education. I just said don't go to Northwestern. Here, did you see this picture that Krista McQuarrie from the Tribune tweeted? You think the exodus from Illinois is not happening? A mom in the suburbs plotted on a map where all of her son's classmates are going to college. Look at this.
Not one is in Illinois.
They're all in Indiana, Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan, Kentucky, and then the rest of the country. I'm telling you. All right, since I wanted to get a little sports in, because we're going to talk the intersection of sports and, and heady notions like free speech with our next guest, David French, who is writer at National Review, of course, constitutional lawyer, author, and veteran of Operation Iraqi Freedom. His latest piece is Conservatives Fail the NFL Speech Test. David French, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me.
So conservatives failed this free speech test. There was at least some celebration in some quarters that we're not going to see the spectacles on the sidelines of millionaires kneeling before the flag and during the anthem, and but you suggest that conservatives who want to enforce respect for the flag and the anthem are making mistakes.
Wrong.
Yes.
Yes. And to be clear, I don't support kneeling. I don't think they should do it. The issue here is we live in a nation where people are using the power that they have to try to stifle speech they don't like. And a lot of times most of the time conservatives are on the receiving end of that. So think about things like forcing out Brendan Eich from Mozilla, or forcing out James Damore from Google, or all the nonsense we see on college campuses from coast to coast. And even when it's not the government, because Google and Yale and Claremont McKenna College and others are not the government, we say, come on, let's have a little room for free speech. You don't have to force everyone to toe the party line. And if you do that, you're destroying the culture of free speech. And oh, by the way, get up off your knee, kneeling football player, or we'll fire you. And that is a fundamental hypocrisy. And it's a hypocrisy, I think, that actually even exacerbates the problem, because before Donald Trump made it an issue, when he was in a rally last year and said the players should be fired, there were 6 players who were kneeling at the start of the game. 6. It was kind of petering out after Colin Kaepernick had got it started. And then after he said that, it was more than 200. And so what ends up happening is you not only expose that your view is essentially, well, free speech for me and the people I like, but not for the people I don't like. It also exacerbates the problem, because then you start to challenge these NFL players. You're challenging their courage. You're challenging their manhood. You're saying, do what I say. And that causes an awful lot of people to rebel against that notion. And so you're not only, failing to consistently defend free speech, you're exacerbating the problem.
Well, it sounds like you're blaming President Trump for the spread of this.
Oh, yes. I mean, it really was. It was a protest that was on its last legs. When you're down to 6 players, and you saw that over the course of the season too. He made his challenge to fire the players, and it was 200 and some odd who knelt the next week. And so long as Trump puts it front and center, players kneel. When it goes off of the radar screen, well, you have a few committed activists out there who might, and they might do it for a little while. But it's just not something that's dominant on the national scene. It's not something that's dominant in your football experience. It's a very minor, small-scale protest until the president puts it front and center, and that takes it all to 11 once again.
Well, then, but following the logic of your argument, he's not exacerbating anything. He's unearthing the problem. He's bringing more of what is sort of hiding in the shadows out into the sunlight. I mean, I agree with you, generally speaking, but I don't think it's exacerbating it. I think it's fantastic. I want people to show me who they are. I want the NFL to be beset. The cowards in the owners' boxes and Roger Goodell and all of the squirmy little people in NFL front offices. I want them to be beset by all of this. I want to know where they stand, and this forces people to take positions. It forces lines to be drawn. I love it.
I hate it.
Why? But why?
I think it's incredibly divisive. What he's doing is he's saying to Americans, and did you hear what he said yesterday?
Yeah, if you don't stand up, get out of the country.
Well, no, I don't agree with that. Obviously,
get out of the.
No, right.
Well, okay. Well, you got to draw. Well, you got to draw your own line here, don't you? You got to draw your own line.
Yeah, but that's just his bloviation. He's not going to deport the left tackle for the Baltimore Ravens.
You can't tell me that if a Democratic president had said something about like that Fox would be outraged about it for 3 straight weeks.
Well, no, I agree. Look, it's a dumb statement.
He said it before,
but I mean, right? But I mean, Colin Kaepernick is not going to be sent to Gitmo. Okay, I mean,
he should go to the Canadian Football League.
I'm just saying, but I mean, David, the thing is, you want sort of these differences that are real to sort of be papered over, and I think it's better that we have this confrontation.
Well, I don't know what's real, what differences that is real that you're talking about. I think what you're dealing with, if you know some of these people who are involved in some of these protests, some of these folks that are being vilified so extremely, I think they're misguided, but a lot of them are actually really good people who are making a mistake in good faith. And then to have the President of the United States say, you shouldn't have a job, and if you're not fired, and if these owners don't fire you, then the league should be out of business. I think that's absurd. It's especially absurd when you're talking about the president talking about compelled patriotism, given that one of the core constitutional values in our country stands opposed to compelled patriotic displays. It's one of the foundational constitutional values, and one of the foundational constitutional decisions in the country. Now, the president's not trying to enforce it,
Right.
thankfully.
That's right.
But what he's doing the fundamental core of what the president of the United States is doing is opposed to these basic American constitutional values. And I don't think it's really even all that defensible for him to do this.
Well,
I think it's repugnant.
Well, okay, but I think there's a little bit of a battle for the culture here, and these athletes have big platforms, and we're supposed to. I mean, it's not we're supposed to, but what happens is people heap adulation on them and give their opinions on things like police power or a range of other issues more import than they're warranted on the merits because they're a great football player, basketball player, baseball player, whatever. And I like Michael Bennett being exposed as a charlatan, the Seattle Seahawks defensive end who made up a story about the police in Vegas and otherwise has been an outspoken antagonist of the police, of the president, of the country, kind of one step down from Colin Kaepernick. I like these people being exposed for the frauds they are, and the only way that you do that is you sort of foment a difference. You foment a discussion about who believes what about this particular issue, say police, since this is part of what started all of these protests.
The reason Michael Bennett was exposed is because there was a videotape of an actual incident that he participated in. He'd been exposed whether he knelt or not. I mean, the thing is, and speaking of the outsized power of celebrity and why people have a platform, good Lord, that's why Donald Trump's president of the United States.
Yeah, okay.
He's a celebrity in chief who millions of people knew because he was a reality TV star and real estate huckster. So, it's really rich to me to see this guy trying to define patriotism when his own view of service in wartime was his fear of STDs was his personal Vietnam. I can't think of a less suitable individual to articulate patriotism. Show some service to your country in the prime of your youth, dude, before you're telling who should get out of the country.
Well, he's serving the country now.
Yeah, but I mean, you could say he's the an unusual carrier of all kinds of policies and all kinds of fights that conservatives have been waging for a long time, whether it's fiscal policies or cultural matters, social mores. You're right. He's certainly an imperfect vessel for many of these issues. But that doesn't.
You think?
Well, but okay, but you're obsessing about Donald Trump. I'm more interested in the cultural fight and exposing the faults between the sides. That's my point. So that you force people to decide on which side of the skirmish line they stand.
Do we lack for that? I mean, do really? I mean, seriously, do we lack for exposing differences in the sides in our culture? That's what we have in abundance. We have exposing differences in sides constantly. That's the news 24/7. What we lack is actually unity. What we lack is some sort of place that's not being seriously politicized.
So what should we what should we unify around?
The problem I have is conservatives are now saying what we've said for years and years and years is, does everything have to be politicized to the point where people are going to be fired if they express their point of view? And then now I guess apparently the answer is it's got to all be politicized. And whenever we control an institution, we'll fire people that do things we don't like. And when the other side controls an institution, they'll fire people who do things that they don't like. And so I don't think we lack for divisions in this country.
Well, actually, the difference in this case is you don't have anybody in the NFL being fired. You may not even have them being fined. I mean, you've got the owner of the Jets saying, "I'll pay fines for anybody who wants to kneel on the sidelines." Okay, fine. This is a private enterprise, private league, private action. Compare that to Brendan Eich or James Damore. So the left seems a little bit more dug in when it comes to enforcing an orthodoxy of opinion than even do conservatives who are roiled by people kneeling for the anthem. But I guess my larger question is, though, when you talk about looking for places of unity with cultural Marxists and avowed socialists, what does that look like? What kind of unity should conservatives be trying to forge?
Well, one of the things is you see, for example, before the president put this issue front and center on the national stage again, the actual national anthem moment, even in the NFL, where kneeling had started, was 99 point something percent of your players are standing. And one of the things that one of the interesting contrasts here, a lot of people have talked about the difference. The NBA has a rule against kneeling,
right?
And on the books, although it's pretty well known within the NBA that that's not something that would be enforced if players chose to do so. But one of the differences is a lot of people don't realize the long-standing grievances between the players and the owners in pro football that are very different than what exists in other professional sports. And I think what's happened is a lot of people sort of parachuted into the NFL debate, not realizing the extent to which this conflict between owners and players is based on a lot of other things. And so I think one of the things that you do is you just kind of let it play out, just let it chill out. One of the things that builds unity in this country is when you protect the rights of others that you would like to exercise yourself. And, I think everyone could sort of stand to relax a little bit about other people's dissent and maybe even bond with them over protecting their rights to dissent. And I think that that's an important element of American unity, because American unity has always been built around liberty, not around agreement. And that's a very key part of the American idea. Build your unity around liberty. And I would say that that's a good start in a very divided country.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I just am more spoiling for the fight than you are. That's all right.
Well, I'll fight you over liberty.
David French. David French, writer at National Review, constitutional lawyer, best-selling author, and a veteran of Operation Iraqi Freedom, served our country. His latest piece, you want to check out more of the details at nationalreview.com. Conservatives fail the NFL's free speech test. David, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.